effective, efficient, safe, and legal route between 2 points. And the 2 points is from where you are to where you're trying to go. Now, a well-planned out trip plan is the difference maker to saving tremendous amount of time and money for you and the carrier as well. It also means that a safe trip for you and the cargo that you're hauling as well, or the people that you're transporting, if you're transporting passengers. Now, you are able to devote all of your attention to driving when you have a good, solid plan before you go on the road. That's why it is crucial to know the trip planning techniques and steps that you need to do so you can be able to plan your trip and be able to be on the road safely and efficiently as well. Now, make sure you have all the necessary and accurate paperwork before you hit the road. So it's very essential to plan an efficient, stress-free, and profitable trip, not just for the motor carrier, but for yourself and the people that you're transporting or the cargo that you're hauling as well. Because it is a major fact that after driving, paperwork is probably the largest task a driver deals with on a daily basis. So that's why it's important to know the 7 simple steps of your trip planning, which is 1, you want to make sure the paperwork is up to date by making sure you have the proper freight documents, current hours of service records, proper permits and licenses, as well as any other important information and documents such as trip ticket, the itinerary are some examples. 2, select the route. So there are many variables and factors that's taken into account. So you have vehicle restrictions, cargo restrictions, traffic conditions, weather, and your safety as well. 3, estimate time. So you want to consider the time and vehicle categories, including weather and road conditions. And you want to plan for stops ahead of time and plan to meet the scheduled deadline for that as well. Then you have 4, vehicle and cargo restrictions. So a trip can run into some unexpected situations and unplanned delays and problems. So that's why there are restricted routes and weight limits on roads and bridges that you have to be mindful of. 5, you have vehicle size and weight limits. There are weight and vehicle size limits when you're driving on interstate highways and roads. Now, allowable weight does depend on the number of axles a vehicle has and the distance between those axles. And then 6, estimate fuel usage and fuel stops. And then 7, estimate trip expenses that you have to be mindful of, because you have to plan for the unexpected and expect what conditions are on the road so that you can understand the nature and the length of the whole trip. Those are the 7 simple steps of planning. It's 1, paperwork is up to date. 2, select the route. 3, estimate the time. 4, vehicle and cargo restrictions. 5, vehicle and size weight limits. 6, estimate fuel usage. And 7, estimate the trip expenses. And we're going to dive deeper into each of these steps of the trip planning process. Now, the paperwork, you should normally have the paperwork with you, and it falls under these 3 major categories: the driver, the cargo, and the vehicle. Now, the driver, according to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, or FMCSRs, you must carry the required documents with you when you're operating a commercial motor vehicle. Now, to verify that you are a qualified commercial motor vehicle driver, you are required to have a CDL license, a commercial driver's license of the correct class, and with any necessary endorsements. And that's under section 383.91 if you want more details. And that is in section 383.91 in the FMCSRs. Then you cannot have any restrictions on your license that apply to the vehicle that you're operating. And you have to carry a valid medical card if your physical was in the previous 15 days, or the medical card information must be listed on your CDL. And always, as key note, always keep an up-to-date DOT medical card with you at all times. As a driver, a combination vehicle, as an example, that is a truck or a tractor that is attached or coupled to 1 or more trailers. For example, a tractor trailer, semi-trailers, a rig, etc. That is a form of a vehicle, a combination vehicle. Then placards is a diamond-shaped sign that's required by regulation. So if you're hauling hazardous materials, that means it's required to be displayed on all 4 sides of the motor vehicle when carrying hazardous materials. Now, also as a driver, you must complete the record of duty status by using an electronic logging device or by using a paper log. So each motor carrier must require every driver to record their duty status for each 24-hour period, whether it's the electronic logging device or you're using a paper log. And you have to remember the record must be legible and kept current to the time that is shown for the last change of duty status. And you must submit the original record of duty status to your motor carrier within 13 days of completions. And you must have a record for that at least 7 consecutive days, plus that current day that you have in your possession. Also, the records must be available for inspection while you are on duty. That is the responsibility of the paperwork that you need to have as a CDL holder, as a driver. Then the cargo. Cargo, you have paperwork that you are hauling. That should be in proper order before you begin your trip in order to make sure that you have the safe and accurate delivery of goods that goes to the appropriate party or right place. First, bill of landing. This is important. Bill of landing is the written transportation contract between the shipper and the carrier, and it shows the freight of who is it delivered to, the place of delivery, and the terms and conditions of the agreement. So that is part of the paperwork when you are dealing with cargo, and that's the bill of landing, the bill or bill of landing. Then you have the consignee. So consignee is the person who is receiving the products and goods that's shipped from the owner or the company. Whereas the connoisseur is the person or company that ships the products and goods to customer. And usually the connoisseur is the owner. So note, a bill of landing is the document that's used between the shipper and the carrier. And the bill of landing is the contract between the parties involved, and it provides that you are authorized to have the cargo. So you want to make sure that your bill of landing is correct from the beginning because it's your responsibility. And if something looks incomplete or incorrect, question it, because you do not want to assume that it's okay or it's good, because if you assume that it's okay and good, any responsibility of you signing that or being in possession of those goods or those products or services or goods, then that means it's your responsibility of whatever happens. Don't just assume that it's good because they say it's good, but you want to double check. If it's not, then get the right answers. So if you're not getting that right answers, just stop, call your dispatcher, because that is part of being a responsible and professional CDL driver or operator. Now, then you have the vehicle. The vehicle paperwork is completed throughout the trip. So accuracy is vitally important because this paperwork is required by regulation and it's required by law. The individual vehicle mileage report is another part of the paperwork, also known as IVMR. So the individual vehicle mileage report is used as a source of document to verify the reported distance and the fuel usage. And that's for the IRP, the International Registration Plan, and the IFTA, which is the International Fuel Tax Agreement. Now, it's original record that is generated from the operation of the vehicle. So a trip report is the individual vehicle mileage report, IVMR, that's used to record that trip information. You must keep an accurate trip report by including and having date of trip, which is from start to finish, having the trip origin or destination of the trip, having the route of travel or beginning and end of the odometer readings. You must have the trip expenses, such as fuel and tolls that you may occur or had accumulated through that trip. You must have the total trip miles and the vehicle identification or unit number, depending on the type of vehicle that you are operating. Then these reports can be kept on your paper or electronically. Now, if certain onboard systems are used, some necessary information will already be captured automatically. And that's one of the benefits of using an electronic system to keep your records, because some of these information is already in the system. But if you're doing it manually, you have to make sure you have all the necessary information for that. Now, the trip report must be accurate because this information is used by the carrier to file the International Fuel Tax Agreement, and it taxes quarterly the fuel tax returns and the International Registration Plan for the annual vehicle inspection renewals. So in an event, if the carrier is audited, You need this because the auditor will examine the trip records and the fuel receipts for accuracy, just to make sure that all the documents are accounted for and everything is correct and all your ducks are in a row, everything is lined up. So in the event, just make sure you have a good understanding of how your company wants you to complete these trip reports. And you must keep certain types of operations and permit credentials in your vehicle, all of the documents, because it depends, and it does depend if you are working for hire or for a private motor carrier, if you're in interstate or intrastate commerce, and if you're transporting a type of commodity or the type of commodity you are transporting. Now, the vehicle, there are certain operations related and permit credentials that you are expected to have. So keep in mind what you need to have. You have the vehicle regulation. So the vehicle regulation is a base state or IRP, International Registration Plan, and it's an IRP cab card showing the active and valid registration. You probably need most likely tax permits, which is the IFTA, International Fuel Tax Agreement license, and decals for the current licensing year on the truck, the vehicle, and the state mileage tax agreements. Now that is as needed or if applicable. So if that's required for the vehicle that you're operating, then you will need that. Then special permits, that's temporary registration or fuel trip permits, including special permits or oversized or overweight shipments. And then authority. Authority is operating rights by the FMCSA and is granted to the for-hire, common, and contract carriers. With authority, that's the state authority credentials. You need to have that if it's applicable or relevant to the vehicle or the company that you're working for. Then the bill of landing or shipping papers. Now this, the bill of landing applies for the for-hire carriage. Then you need the lease agreement. That must be carried for the duration of the whole lease, if that's applicable or relevant to you. And then Unified Carrier Registration, also known as UCR. Unified Carrier Registration is a program that requires commercial motor vehicles in interstate or international commerce to register their businesses with the participating state, and they pay usually an annual fee based on the size of their fleet or company. So that is a registration process. So Unified Carrier Registration, UCR, does not issue a credential. However, you can carry proof of payment and or receipt of that. And that's part of the paperwork that you'll need specifically for the vehicle that you are driving or operating. Hey, BET Trainer here. Listen, if you really had true value out of this video, go ahead and click that like button and share some honest comments about this video, because this is going to help other people as well see the video and get the value information, so that way they can be inspired by what you're doing right now as well. So also, if you want to get the latest updates, go ahead and click the subscribe button, so then you can be able to always be updated on the next instant video that will be put out. So again, go ahead and do that. And this video was sponsored by BET Life Services and CDL for Life.